OuterOrange. It's Zorga, but different. Welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk to you guys about a deck that is pretty much kind of like a Zorga deck, but a little different, slightly cheaper, and just has a slightly different thought process thinking, and that is our boy Iron Anchor Resentment Dragon. He's got quite a long name, but he has kind of a similar mechanic to Zorga, but slightly more budget. So let's go and look at the deck list and talk about it. All right, so here I am. I'm using deck lock again, just because it's just a little easier to use when it comes to decks that I'm not like mainly focusing on. But for the people out there that would like to know about other decks that isn't specifically Zorga, here's a nice list for you that you can kind of use and focus on. So pretty much the main focus of the deck is, of course, our boy over here. Pretty much this guy is when you play a normal order, you may bind one normal order with the same name from your drop and combine it with Alchemagic, essentially. And something to note that this is his only skill. It's a Vanguard skill, and that's all he does. So with Zorga, you can actually counterblast a call card. So you'll notice that with this guy, you can't do that. Keep in mind, it's also only normal orders. Like the entire deck is oriented around normal orders, so there's no point in running Ghost Chase in here, as Ghost Chase will not activate as well, and honestly Ghost Chase just isn't as necessarily needed, as you don't have that Zorga skill that lets you counterblast to call anything. You can't really utilize Ghost Chase as well, so I actually don't run Ghost Chase in here. Now keep in mind, the biggest difference between our Resentment Dragon guy and Zorga is that you have to bind the same order, so you can't run like weird one-ofs or anything like that, because you can't use the Alchemagic. You use it normally, but you can't Alchemagic it. So actually down here, I run 3 orders and I run 4 copies of each of them. And I'll kind of talk about them in a little bit. For our ride line, as I mentioned, we've got one of our boy over here, like our main Resentment Dragon. Then we have 1 Husk Dragon for a ride line, a Rancor Chain, and our starter. So you'll notice that the actual ride line isn't too different, as Husk Dragon lets you pick up normal orders. Rancor Chain is just really good for that double draw discard. You can get to your stuff faster. And on top of that, he's also a 10k beat stick as a rear guard. So if you still blast him out and you can call him back out again, he's a 10k at all times. Now I do want to mention, I did make this deck a little bit more budgety, and I'll talk about some budget options too in here like a little bit later. But going on in, so I run Coffin Shooter, this guy right here. Pretty much just says he lets you Soul Blast, you bind 1 order from your job, you can call him out to a rear guard, empty rear guard circle. Which is really nice about him is that you don't have to use your resources. So as I mentioned, Zorga usually lets you counterblast to call something. Well, in this case, we'll just focus on this guy getting our free unit out, since we can't actually counterblast to call anything, but you can just use him instead. And then I also run Hedrina. I think Hedrina and the Demon Head Hunting, or the Demon Hunter, I believe it's called in English. This guy is just this combo is just really good right now, especially in this kind of deck where you're actually going to be double stacking on your resources. So you may want to prioritize one or the other depending on what it was in your hand. So if say you have Spirit Condensation down here, then you want to make sure you focus on Hedrina. If you prioritize a Wild Intelligence, then you have to only use Counterblast, so you may want to keep this guy out for that. And Hedrina lets you pretty much mill also, which will get you to your win con a little bit faster here. But anyway, Hedrina's skill is on place. You can choose to mill 3. You don't have to, but you can choose to do it. For other skill, you can retire her, and that way you get that Soul Blast cost where you get free Soul Blast whenever you Alchemagic. We also have our Demon Hunter over here. He has a very similar skill. His is on place. He, if you were to Alchemagic, your Counterblast do not go off, which means your Counterblasts are just free. And his other skill, he gets 5k if you have an order, making him a 13k beat stick. Really solid stuff. The more I've been playtesting with this, the more I like this card. But yeah, so these 2 are pretty much your choices. So if you're seeing that you have a lot of these, then you go after this. If you see you have a lot of these, then you want to focus on this guy. So you kind of have a choice, because our 3rd order here does not require any Counterblast, any Soul Blast, which is actually why I'm running him, as you're going to be stacking up your Counterblast and Soul Blast quite a bit. So you want to make sure you have some kind of way to do stuff without having to use Counterblast and Soul Blast, which is where this guy comes in. So going on in, we run, of course, 4 Perfect Guards. If you're going towards a more budget orient, you can also run the Trial deck Perfect Guards. They do work pretty well. You can run 4 fronts. You can choose to run more crits if you want to. I prefer the fronts because these are the 20k shield ones. If you can't afford these, you can always go after just the regular 15k shield ones. These are a little bit more pricey, but I think they're going to start going down. This is the new front. This one says if your opponent is grade 3 or greater, then this becomes a 20k shield over just a 15k shield, which is a really nice Guard. Going on, we have the overtrigger. With the overtrigger, again, you can actually run the old one. You can run the basic Creo one, which states you give 100 million power to 2 units, which still the draw activates. This is of course better, but if you can't afford to go down the route of owning this, or you're waiting it out or whatever it is, you can also just pick up the regular trial deck overtrigger and put it in here. It'll work pretty similarly. The only difference is you won't get the extra crit and 10k, but it'll still do the job of making every single swing very lethal. So not too bad. I run 3 crits because we have to suffice the skill not having the extra card to call with draws. So I think draws are kind of important in this deck. So I actually have 4 draws in here. I think you kind of need it. You can't go around it, unfortunately. You can lower your fronts and make them draws or crits or something like that, but you need draws. Like, you need draws no matter what. Like, I think it's kind of necessary, as you will not be reviving as much as a Zorga deck would be, so you have to suffice that somewhere by having a bigger hand. And then of course run 4 heal, and then let's talk about our orders a little bit here. So the 2 you want to like pretty much go back and forth between is these 2. They both let you revive units, and this one gives you power and this one lets you mill. So the quicker you mill, the quicker you get to this condition. I want to run Cursed Agony in here, and then I realized that means you have to do Cursed Agony skill twice, and I realized just how bad that is. So I actually took Cursed Agony out. You can just run this instead. So this guy right here is Spear Condensation. It says pretty much Soul Blast. Call a card from your drop that's greater than, less than or equal to your Vanguard, and that unit gets 5k. And you can do this twice, so you can essentially call 2 units and they both get 5k. So you can call out your Husk Dragons, you can call out Hadrina, you can call out grade 1 if you want, whatever you want to call out. And the same condition applies to this guy, the Counterblast guy. He mills you 3 cards and you call a card. The only difference between this guy and this guy is that this one does not have the 5k, but it has that milling potential. So you're really just kind of keeping an eye on like how much you want to get through your deck in order to go into our Nectar of Sensation. So Nectar of Sensation states that you pretty much pick a rear guard. Literally, you just pick a rear guard and you give it power based off of every 5 mill in your deck. So for every 5 you get 5k, and if you have 15 milled out cards in your deck, you actually get a crit on top of that. So you're kind of starting to see kind of the synergy here. Keep in mind this does not have any cost whatsoever on it, so you can actually double up on this. You can go, and if you already have a board set up, you can use this guy here, Coffin Shooter, to get your board set up. Try to get your stuff going. This is like a final turn thing, by the way. So pretty much what you do is if you have 2 of these in drop, you can call these out, and then you have your board ready, and then you go into 2 of these, 1 from drop, 1 from hand, and you pretty much double up those rear guards. So now both those rear guards would be pretty much 15 plus, depending on how much you mill, and they'll have a crit on them on each side. So what's really nice about this is when you swing with your Vanguard, that both your comms on both sides are both lethal. So something to keep in mind. They're both numbers, and they'll get higher if you add your fronts, your crits, whatever, your draws, and you can just kind of stack it up that way. So it is kind of like pretty much your win con, essentially. That's why we run 4, because you do want to make sure you get to this eventually, and of course, since we are doing the same order combo, you want to make sure you have the same order both in your drop and in your hand. So that's why we have this whole thing going here, and that's honestly pretty much the deck. Like, it's pretty straightforward. You're alchemagicking with the same cards, whereas with Zorga, you alchemagic with different cards. If you've already played Zorga or have tested out Zorga, you kind of already know how the deck works. If you want to go the budget route, like I said, you can change the PGs out, you can change you can overtrigger out for something a little bit cheaper, whatever fits you. I think outside of the overtrigger and the perfect guards, and maybe the Demon Hunter, which is this guy right here, this deck is actually pretty cheap to build. The deck overall is not too expensive, and yeah, I just want to show you guys, just let you know that this deck does exist. I think it's a really fun experimental deck. I think it's super fun to just try out. I think as more orders come out, this deck will have its own type of engine going, and maybe there'll even be like more support going for this type of deck where you can just kind of build around the engine of having like same orders, which would be really cool to see in the future if they ever decide to kind of add on to this engine. I don't know if they will. I thought it was very weird that they released this card, to be honest. I saw it and I was like, huh, that was unusual. If you have any questions or comments or concerns or just ideas or thoughts that you have on this deck, please feel free to leave them down below. I always respond, and if I don't respond, I give you a like and a little heart face. So if you have any questions or just thoughts on the deck, please feel free to tell me. I will be releasing a Zorga version of this as well. I just want to kind of get out the more budgety version for you guys as soon as possible. I know you guys are out there building and get really excited for set 2, and I just want to bring this guy out. I don't know if people even remember this reveal of a Resentment Dragon or not, but if you don't, here it is. Here's me reminding you that the card exists. It's out there. It's just Zorga, but different. So yeah, you guys can experiment and tell me how you feel about the deck, and if you made any changes, what those changes are. But now, guys, I'm gonna head out. As always, I wanted to give a big thank you guys for all the support and all the greatness. You guys rock. Buffetchu says thank you. I say thank you. Other than that, guys, I'm gonna peace now. So peace out. Do svidania. See you guys next time. Bye.